You think you see clearly, but your perception is tiered, ranked, and judged. Your ignorance isn't innocence. It's proof you're positioned lower than you dare admit. You were taught that perception is neutral, that everyone has their own perspective, that all viewpoints deserve equal space. That lie keeps you comfortable and controlled. Perception is not equal. It is ranked. There is a ladder, and you are standing on a rung whether you admit it or not. The problem is not that you are on a lower tier. The problem is that you believe you are not. Most men assume they see reality clearly. They confuse exposure with awareness. They scroll information, consume opinions, repeat language, and mistake that repetition for cognition. But perception is not about what you see. It is about what you detect, what you filter, what you ignore, and what you cannot even recognize exists. Lower tiers see events. Higher tiers see patterns. Elite tiers see structures behind patterns. You react to outcomes. They anticipate inevitabilities. This is not intelligence. This is positioning. The first shift you must accept is brutal. Your emotional reactions reveal your tier. If outrage controls you, you are positioned low. If validation motivates you, you are positioned low. If you need agreement before action, you are positioned low. Higher perception reduces emotional volatility. It slows reaction time. It increases silence. Because the higher you climb, the more you understand that perception is warfare. Information is filtered before it reaches you. Narratives are shaped before you hear them. Conflicts are framed before you choose sides. And you still believe you are forming your own opinion. You are not forming. You are selecting from options that were pre-approved. The latter exists because cognition scales. At the bottom tier, perception is personal. Do I like this? Does this offend me? Does this benefit me right now? At the middle tiers, perception becomes strategic. What is this signal? Who benefits? What pattern is repeating? At the highest tiers, perception becomes structural. What system produced this? What incentives created this behavior? What long-term power shift is unfolding? The difference between tiers is not morality. It is distance. Lower tiers are emotionally entangled with events. Higher tiers observe events as data. And distance creates leverage. You have been conditioned to believe empathy is always strength. That emotional involvement proves humanity. That reacting quickly shows authenticity. But in dominance hierarchies, immediacy is weakness. Predators do not flinch. Surgeons do not panic. Strategists do not reveal confusion. They watch. The ladder you refuse to see determines how others classify you within seconds. Your speech patterns, your timing, your emotional spikes, they signal your perceptual rank. You think you are hiding your position. You are broadcasting it. Every time you argue impulsively, you confirm lower-tier framing. Every time you chase explanation, you reveal insecurity. Every time you defend yourself unnecessarily, you concede status. Higher-tier perception understands something dangerous. Most people cannot move beyond their assigned cognitive ceiling because comfort anchors them to it. Ascending perception feels isolating. You begin to see manipulation where others see coincidence. You begin to see incentives where others see virtue. You begin to see weakness disguised as kindness. And that awareness distances you. This is why many men avoid climbing. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they fear separation. Higher tiers reduce belonging. The latter is invisible to those who benefit from you remaining unaware of it. Equal perception ideology protects hierarchy stability. If everyone believes they see equally, no one questions why outcomes are unequal. But outcomes are unequal because perception is unequal. Some men see the board. Some see only their square. The moment you accept that perception is stratified, your ego fractures. You are forced to confront the possibility that your certainty is proof of limitation. And that is the first surgical cut. This chapter is not about humiliation. It is about orientation. Before you can climb, you must locate yourself. You are somewhere on the ladder. Your reactions reveal where. The question is not whether tears exist. The question is whether you are disciplined enough to admit your current position. Because the climb begins with one decision. Stop assuming you see clearly. Perception tears are not accidents. They are maintained. There is a mechanism that keeps most men cognitively contained, locked inside narrow interpretive frames, while believing they are free. That mechanism is emotional filtration. You do not process reality directly. You process it through what triggers you. Every time something provokes anger, excitement, outrage, desire, or fear, your cognitive bandwidth collapses. Your attention narrows. Your analysis shortens. Your conclusions harden. Emotion compresses perception. Lower tiers live inside that compression. When you are emotionally activated, you stop scanning for structure. You stop asking who benefits. You stop mapping incentives. You default to moral language. Right, wrong, fair, unfair. Because morality is cognitively cheaper than strategy. And cheap cognition keeps you manageable. Understand this clearly. The system does not need to silence you. It only needs to stimulate you. Stimulated men are predictable men. If your pride can be triggered, you can be steered. If your fear can be activated, you can be positioned. If your validation hunger can be exploited, you can be contained. This is why outrage cycles dominate public discourse. This is why controversy spreads faster than analysis. Emotional ignition keeps perception shallow. You think you are engaged. You are being occupied. Higher tiers recognize emotional activation as a signal not to react, but to slow down. They study their own triggers like weak points in armor. When something provokes them, they do not ask, "Is this offensive?" They ask, "Why did this reach me? What reaction is being extracted? What behavior is being incentivized?" That shift alone separates tiers. Cognitive containment works through three primary filters. First, identity attachment. If your identity is fused to ideology, group, or role, your perception defends that attachment. You stop analyzing threats objectively because disagreement feels like erasure. Second, reward conditioning. Applause, likes, agreement. Micro-validations train you to align with safe narratives. You adapt your perception to maintain social reward. Over time, your independent analysis atrophies. Third, fear of isolation. This is the deepest containment layer. Most men would rather be wrong in a group than correct alone. So they unconsciously narrow perception to preserve belonging. Containment is not enforced through chains. It is enforced through comfort. You are allowed to think within boundaries. You are allowed to question selectively. You are allowed to disagree, but only inside acceptable frames. Step outside those frames and social temperature drops. Lower tiers retreat immediately when that temperature shifts. They recalibrate to regain warmth. Higher tiers tolerate the cold. They understand something dangerous. Isolation expands perception. When applause disappears, you are forced to evaluate without reinforcement. When no one mirrors your thoughts, you must audit them internally. This is why emotional detachment is not cruelty, it is clarity. Detachment widens the lens. If you can observe a narrative without feeling compelled to defend or attack it, your cognitive field expands. You begin to see layers: who is incentivized, who is reacting, who is being mobilized. Most men never experience this expansion because their nervous system is constantly engaged. Notifications, arguments, entertainment, endless stimulation keeps perception compressed. Compression feels alive. Expansion feels empty. But inside that emptiness is altitude. Cognitive containment also relies on urgency. Urgency eliminates reflection. Respond now. Pick a side. React immediately. The faster you respond, the lower your tiered processing. Strategists delay. They allow events to mature before interpreting them. They gather secondary signals. They watch who overreacts, because overreaction reveals position. When you cannot delay response, you reveal dependency on external pacing. That dependency signals lower tier perception, tethered to stimulus. Higher tiers control tempo. They understand that time is a cognitive weapon. Slow analysis intimidates fast reactors. Silence destabilizes. Noise. Containment collapses the moment you control your emotional threshold. If you can encounter provocation without visible reaction, you immediately shift tiers in the eyes of observers. Your unpredictability increases. Your leverage increases. Because now you are not operating from impulse. You are operating from selection. Most men want more information. They do not need more information. They need fewer triggers. The core psychological mechanism is simple. Emotional volatility narrows perception. Narrow perception lowers rank. Lower rank increases manipulability. The latter is maintained through your reactions. You cannot climb while emotionally reactive. And this is where it becomes uncomfortable. Your strongest opinions may be proof of containment. The intensity you feel defending certain ideas might not be conviction. It might be conditioning. Higher tier perception requires surgical detachment from self-image. You must be willing to audit your own certainty without flinching. That is rare, because certainty feels powerful. But real power is flexible. Rigid men shatter. Adaptive men ascend. Cognitive containment breaks the moment you realize this. You are not fighting opponents. You are fighting your own unexamined reactions. Master that, and the latter begins to reveal itself differently. Perception is tiered, but tiers are not abstract. They manifest as behavioral archetypes, predictable, repeatable, structurally limited. You can identify a man's tier by how he interprets events, how quickly he reacts, and what he defends. There are 8. Tier 1, the reactor. This is the lowest level of awareness. The reactor does not interpret reality. He absorbs and responds. Stimulus enters, emotion exits. News, insult. Praise, fear. Everything triggers immediate expression. He believes reaction equals strength, but reaction is exposure. His opinions are assembled from headlines. His anger is borrowed. His outrage is synchronized with whatever trend is loudest. He does not know who benefits from his reaction. He only knows he feels alive when expressing it. He is governed by impulse. The reactor is easy to mobilize, easy to distract, easy to exhaust. Tier 2, the loyalist. The loyalist graduates from pure reaction into group identity. He attaches himself to a tribe, political, ideological, cultural, religious, social, and filters all perception through it. He no longer reacts randomly. He reacts predictably in defense of affiliation. Belonging stabilizes him, but it also blinds him. He mistakes conformity for conviction. He believes loyalty is moral superiority. He does not analyze structure. He protects narrative. The loyalist fears isolation more than falsehood. He will defend weakness if the group requires it. Tier 3, the performer. The performer becomes aware of optics. He understands perception matters, but only socially. He curates opinions to maximize approval. His Awareness is strategic, but shallow. He studies trends to align advantageously. He says what earns applause. He adopts outrage when profitable. He mimics higher-tier language without internalizing it. The performer appears intelligent, but his cognition is rented. Remove the audience and his identity destabilizes. Tier 4, the questioner. Here, awareness begins to fracture containment. The questioner starts doubting narratives. He notices inconsistencies. He senses manipulation in media, institutions, and social groups. But he lacks structure. He questions everything, yet builds nothing. He replaces blind loyalty with scattered skepticism. This often turns into cynicism. He sees corruption but does not understand hierarchy. This tier is dangerous because it feels elevated, but remains reactive at a deeper level. Tier 5, the analyst. Now perception shifts from emotional to structural. The analyst studies incentives. He asks, who benefits? Who gains leverage? What are the second order consequences? He delays judgment. He understands that information is framed. He watches patterns rather than moments. His reactions slow, dramatically, but he is still mostly defensive. He analyzes power. He does not yet wield it. He sees the board. He does not move pieces. Tier 6, the strategist. This is where perception becomes weaponized. The strategist not only sees incentives, he manipulates them. He controls tempo. He withholds information. He allows others to reveal themselves through impatience. Silence becomes a tactic. He understands that most men operate from tiers below him. He predicts reactions before they occur. He does not argue to win. He positions to dominate. Emotion is studied, not obeyed. Tier 7, the architect. The architect designs environments. He no longer focuses on individual interactions. He structures systems that shape perception for others. Institutions, networks, hierarchies, he builds containers. While lower tiers argue inside narratives, the architect creates narratives. He understands that power is upstream from opinion. He is rarely visible. He does not seek recognition. Recognition invites scrutiny. He prefers influence without spotlight. Tier 8, the sovereign. This is the highest tier. The sovereign is psychologically untethered. He is not emotionally activated by praise or insult. He does not require belonging. He does not seek validation. His perception is not confined by ideology, tribe, or optics. He operates from internal command. Isolation does not threaten him. It sharpens him. He understands that most of humanity will never perceive him clearly, and he is unbothered by that reality. He does not need to prove position. He knows it. Now understand something critical. These tiers are not fixed identities. They are default settings under pressure. A man may operate as an analyst in business but collapse into a loyalist in politics. He may be a strategist, socially, but a reactor romantically. Stress reveals true tier. Most men overestimate their rank because they judge themselves in calm environments. But tiers are measured during provocation, temptation, and threat. When insulted, do you react or observe? When isolated, do you panic or recalibrate? When praised, do you inflate or stay neutral? Your honest answers determine position. Here is the uncomfortable truth. You do not climb tiers by learning terminology. You climb by eliminating dependency. Dependency on approval. Dependency on tribe. Dependency on emotional discharge. Every dependency anchors you to lower tiers. And ascension is subtraction. Remove reactivity. Remove attachment. Remove performative behavior. What remains is structural perception. The question is not which archetype sounds impressive. The question is which one you default to when something threatens your ego. That is your tier. Perception does not merely define understanding. It defines vulnerability. Every tier carries a predictable weakness. And power structures do not attack strength. They exploit weakness. The reactor is manipulated through urgency. The loyalist through belonging. The performer through visibility. The questioner through chaos. The analyst through overthinking. The strategist, architect, and sovereign are rare not because intelligence is rare, but because detachment is rare. Most men never ascend because ascending requires ego reduction. And ego resists exposure. History is not shaped by the most emotional. It is shaped by those who understood perception tiers and positioned themselves accordingly. Consider political collapses. Empires rarely fall because of external enemies first. They fall because leadership misreads internal tiers. Leaders assume loyalty where only performance exists. They assume discipline where only fear holds structure. They assume unity where fragmentation is already metastasizing. Misreading perception is fatal. On an individual level, the same law applies. A man operating at Tier 3 believes charisma protects him. He confuses attention with influence. But attention attracts scrutiny. Scrutiny exposes instability. A man at Tier 4 believes skepticism equals independence. But endless questioning without construction creates paralysis. He sees manipulation everywhere, yet cannot execute decisively because he distrusts everything. A Tier 5 analyst becomes addicted to understanding. He studies, decodes, researches. He sees patterns in economics, psychology, social behavior. But he delays movement because perfect clarity never arrives. Perception without action decays into intellectual vanity. Now observe the deeper threat. Higher tiers do not announce themselves. The strategist never debates emotionally. He lets lower tiers reveal insecurity publicly. He studies who reacts to what. He tests with silence. He plants small contradictions to see who collapses into defense. The architect shapes systems quietly. He designs rules others follow unconsciously. He never needs to argue because he determines parameters. The sovereign cannot be socially destabilized, and that makes him socially dangerous. Most environments are structured around emotional leverage. Approval, shame, fear of exclusion. These are containment mechanisms. When a man is immune to them, control fails. So what happens? He is labeled arrogant, cold, detached, difficult, unrelatable. These labels are not diagnoses. They are defensive reactions from lower tiers. Society penalizes vertical movement because vertical movement disrupts predictability. The higher you climb, the fewer people understand your operating system. And misunderstanding creates friction. This is where most men retreat. They taste Tier 5 or 6 perception briefly, then return to belonging. They dilute clarity to regain social comfort. They would rather be accepted than accurate. This is the threat of misplaced perception. If you believe you are higher than you are, you will be exposed. If you rise too quickly without emotional discipline, you will self-sabotage. If you underestimate others, you will be blindsided. Predators identify tier instantly. They test reactions. A casual insult. A delayed reply. An ambiguous statement. They watch. Reactivity reveals level. Silence reveals control. Most men fail these microtests daily without realizing they are being evaluated. In professional hierarchies, promotions do not always follow competence. They follow perceived stability under pressure. Executives observe who maintains composure during crisis, who escalates emotionally, who seeks reassurance, who projects calm. Perception under stress determines ascension. In relationships, dominance is rarely physical. It is perceptual. The one less emotionally reactive holds leverage. The one less afraid of withdrawal controls tempo. In conflict, the man who can endure ambiguity longer usually wins. Lower tiers demand clarity immediately. Higher tiers tolerate uncertainty strategically. Here is the uncomfortable pattern. Every time you demand validation, you descend. Every time you over-explain, you descend. Every time you react impulsively, you descend. And every time you detach without bitterness, you ascend. The system does not reward morality. It rewards stability. This is why many competent men remain stagnant. They possess knowledge but lack tier discipline, understand dynamics but cannot regulate ego when challenged. Power structures do not need to defeat you physically. They need you to expose yourself emotionally. Misplaced perception is self-betrayal. When you think you are a strategist but behave like a loyalist under criticism, your hierarchy position is revealed. When you believe you are sovereign but panic at social exclusion, illusion collapses. And illusions are expensive. This chapter is not about paranoia. It is about calibration. Know your tier honestly. Know others' tiers accurately. Never assume alignment based on words. Measure based on reactions. Because in every room, tiers are interacting. And the highest tier present is usually the quietest. Ascension is not emotional growth. It is structural recalibration. You do not climb perception tiers by collecting information. You climb by eliminating instability. The first instability is reactivity. If your emotions can be provoked on demand, you are programmable. Most men believe strength is intensity, raised voice, sharp retort, immediate correction. But intensity is visible, leverage, and visible leverage can be pulled. Strategic ascent begins with delayed response, not silence from weakness, silence from observation. When insulted, do not correct immediately. When challenged, do not defend reflexively. When praised, do not inflate. Delay exposes intention. Lower tiers speak to release tension. Higher tiers speak to alter direction. This is your first behavioral shift. Control tempo. Tempo is dominance. The one who sets pacing determines emotional gravity in any interaction. Fast reactions place you beneath pressure. Controlled pacing forces others to adjust to you. Second shift, information discipline. Stop narrating your process. Lower tiers explain what they are building because they seek validation. They want acknowledgement before completion. This creates vulnerability. Information shared prematurely creates opposition prematurely. Strategists reveal outcomes, not intentions. You do not announce moves mid-construction. You do not broadcast ambition before infrastructure exists. Visibility invites interference. Silence is not secrecy for drama. It is containment. Containment preserves leverage. Third shift, emotional neutrality under evaluation. You are constantly being assessed. In meetings, in conversations, in arguments, in moments of loss. Most men crumble when socially evaluated. They overcompensate with humor, aggression, or justification. They try to repair perception instantly. But higher tiers allow misinterpretation to exist. They understand that perception control is long-term positioning, not momentary correction. If someone underestimates you, let them. Underestimation reduces resistance. Ascension requires ego contraction, not ego destruction, contraction. You must become less concerned with being understood. Lower tiers crave recognition. Higher tiers crave control. These are different currencies. Fourth shift, selective detachment. Detachment does not mean apathy. It means strategic non-participation. You do not attend every argument. You do not respond to every criticism. You do not defend every rumor. Energy allocation is tier signaling. When you engage everywhere, you appear accessible. When you engage selectively, you appear weighted. Weight creates gravity, and gravity pulls attention without pursuit. Fifth shift, pattern mapping. Start observing recurring behavioral loops in others. Who reacts to authority? Who collapses under ambiguity? Who needs approval? Who competes unconsciously? Stop judging. Start mapping. Perception tiers are visible through stress patterns. Under pressure, the loyalist seeks guidance. The performer seeks spotlight. The questioner seeks contradiction. The analyst seeks more data. The strategist watches. Mapping replaces emotional engagement with structural awareness. You are no longer inside the interaction. You are above it. Sixth shift, tolerance for isolation. As you ascend, compatibility shrinks. You will speak less. You will share less. You will resonate with fewer. This is not punishment. It is filtration. Isolation is a side effect of perception upgrade. You begin to see incentives behind behavior. You detect manipulation in casual kindness. You notice insecurity behind aggression. You cannot unsee structure. And once structure becomes visible, surface conversations lose stimulation. Many retreat here. They descend deliberately to regain comfort. But ascension demands discomfort endurance. Seventh shift, decision compression. Lower tiers deliberate endlessly. They wait for consensus. They fear blame. Higher tiers make decisions with incomplete information, then adjust. Action refines perception faster than theory. Do not confuse recklessness with decisiveness. Decisiveness is controlled commitment. You act. You observe response. You recalibrate. This feedback loop accelerates tier elevation. Eighth shift, emotional concealment, not suppression. Concealment. You may feel anger, doubt, fear, but you do not leak them publicly. Leaked emotion is exploitable data. Strategic men process privately, execute publicly. Ninth shift, internal command structure. Replace external validation with internal metrics. Did you maintain composure? Did you control pacing? Did you reveal too much? Did you misread tier alignment? Measure behavior, not applause. Applause is volatile. Structure is stable. Ascension is not dramatic. It is subtle subtraction. You remove reactivity. You remove oversharing. You remove impulsive defense. You remove approval addiction. What remains is strategic clarity. And clarity intimidates, because clarity does not negotiate with comfort. The higher tiers are not louder. They are steadier. And steadiness under pressure is rare. Rare equals valuable. Valuable equals powerful. If you practice these shifts consistently, perception begins to invert. People speak differently around you. Challenges become cautious. Provocations decrease. Opportunities appear without announcement, because you have shifted from reactive participant to structural variable. And structures protect variables that enhance stability. Ascension is earned through restraint, not ambition. You cannot rise through perception tiers while protecting the identity that was built to survive lower ones. That identity is optimized for acceptance. It seeks approval to feel stable. It explains itself to avoid misunderstanding. It performs competence instead of embodying it. That version of you must be terminated, not improved, replaced. Most men attempt ascension by adding behaviors. More discipline, more knowledge, more productivity. But perception is not expanded through accumulation. It is transformed through elimination. What must die first is the need to be seen as good. Goodness in lower tiers is a survival currency. You were taught to be agreeable, supportive, cooperative. These traits secure belonging. They reduce conflict. They create temporary safety. But in higher perception tiers, goodness without power is ornamental. You are tolerated, not respected. Identity termination begins when you accept that some people must downgrade their perception of you for you, to upgrade your position. When you stop over-explaining, some will call you distant. When you stop reacting, some will call you cold. When you stop seeking consensus, some will call you arrogant. This is not social failure. It is tier separation. Lower tiers interpret detachment as hostility because they rely on emotional exchange to feel secure. When you remove emotional accessibility, they feel destabilized. Let them. You are not responsible for maintaining comfort ecosystems that restrict your growth. The second identity layer that must die is the performer. The performer adapts to audience expectation. He shifts tone, humor, energy to maintain approval metrics. He is hyper-aware of how he is being received. This is exhausting because it places your internal stability in external hands. Higher tiers operate differently. They maintain internal consistency regardless of audience. Consistency is intimidating. It signals internal command structure. The performer negotiates presence. The strategist establishes it. If your personality changes depending on who is in the room, you are not ascending, you are surviving. Survival identities cannot govern. They can only adapt. And adaptation without control is submission. The third layer that must be terminated is emotional transparency without filtration. Lower tiers equate vulnerability with authenticity. They disclose struggles openly, believing it builds connection. Sometimes it does, but it also reveals leverage points. Higher perception tiers understand something colder. Information is currency. You do not reveal emotional states casually. You reveal strategically if revealing benefits positioning. Otherwise, you process privately, not because you are afraid, because you understand that visibility invites calculation. The fourth layer is dependency on momentum. Many men feel powerful only when winning publicly. When validation increases, confidence increases. When validation disappears, doubt grows. This is fragile architecture. Identity termination requires stability independent of feedback. You must be able to execute without applause, to build without acknowledgement, to progress in invisibility. If your motivation requires observation, you are structurally dependent. And dependence is leverage. The fifth layer is moral naivety. You must abandon the assumption that others operate from fairness. Higher tiers operate from incentive. People align with advantage, not virtue. If you still evaluate loyalty emotionally instead of strategically, you will miscalculate alliances. Termination here means recalibrating how you interpret behavior. Ask not, does he like me? Ask, does this alignment benefit him? If benefit disappears, alignment will dissolve. Understanding this prevents disillusionment. It replaces betrayal shock with predictive clarity. The sixth layer is attachment to past perception. Some of you still operate according to who you used to be. The underestimated one. The rejected one. The overlooked one. You unconsciously perform this identity because it feels familiar. But ascension requires discontinuity. You cannot carry grievance upward. Grievance anchors perception to the past tier. Identity termination means emotional amputation of outdated narratives. You are not proving them wrong anymore. You are restructuring position. This is a colder objective. The final layer that must die is comfort with accessibility. When you are always reachable, always responsive, always available, You communicate surplus capacity. Scarcity increases value. This applies to time, attention, and emotional bandwidth. Higher-tier identities do not grant access indiscriminately. They filter, not out of arrogance, out of structure preservation. When access becomes selective, your presence gains weight. Weight shifts perception. Perception shifts tier. Understand this clearly. Identity death is lonely because the old identity was socially reinforced. People like that version. He was agreeable, predictable, safe. The new identity is quieter, harder, more contained. Some will withdraw. Let them. Ascension is incompatible with universal approval. You are not upgrading personality. You are upgrading structure, and structure demands sacrifice. When identity termination is complete, something changes. You no longer feel urgency to explain yourself. You no longer feel threatened by misunderstanding. You no longer chase recognition. You operate silently, consistently, detached from applause. At that point, you are no longer attempting to climb tiers. You are embodying one. You believe ascension comes with recognition. It doesn't. There is no announcement when you move up a tier. No ceremony. No validation letter confirming your promotion. Selection does not congratulate. It filters. And if you misunderstand this, you will sabotage yourself at the final threshold. Most men fail here, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack discipline, but because they crave confirmation. They want to know they've arrived. That craving is residue from lower tiers. Lower tiers are loud. They provide feedback loops. They react to every move. Higher tiers are quiet. Doors open subtly. Access shifts quietly. People change their tone without explanation. No one says, "You've leveled up." They just start treating you differently. More cautious. More calculated, more respectful, or more distant. Distance is often respect misinterpreted. Understand this. The moment you begin seeking evidence of your own rise, you create instability. You start scanning for signs. You overanalyze interactions. You test reactions. That is insecurity wearing strategic clothing. True tier advancement feels anticlimactic, because it is structural, not emotional. Now comes the final warning. Once you rise in perception, you become subject to new evaluation pressures. Higher tiers are not comfortable. They are competitive ecosystems. When you become stable, independent, and internally governed, two types of individuals appear: the opportunist, the challenger. The opportunist sees leverage in alignment with you. The challenger sees threat in your position. If your identity is not fully reconstructed, you will misread both. You will trust too quickly or react too defensively. This is how rising men are neutralized. Not through obvious attack, through psychological miscalculation. Let's make something brutally clear. The higher you ascend, the less emotional margin for error you have. In lower tiers, mistakes are tolerated. In higher tiers, mistakes are recorded. Reputation becomes cumulative data. Your words weigh more. Your silence weighs more. Your alliances weigh more. Everything compounds. This is why premature visibility is dangerous. Many men develop skill but rush exposure. They announce ambition before structure is ready. They signal power before consolidating it. And when pressure arrives, their internal foundation fractures. Selection does not forgive instability at higher levels. It replaces. This is the brutal efficiency of hierarchical systems. You are not judged on effort. You are judged on durability. Now understand the elite principle. You do not rise by demanding recognition. You rise by becoming statistically unavoidable. unavoidable through competence, unavoidable through consistency, unavoidable through emotional regulation. When your output remains stable under isolation, indifference, and delayed reward, perception shifts without you forcing it. This is Machiavellian order, not chaos, not rebellion, not noise. Order, calculated, controlled, quiet. And here is the final psychological inversion. You thought isolation meant you were being ignored. Isolation was containment. Selection reduces variables around you to test structural integrity. When applause disappears, the experiment begins. When support withdraws, calibration begins. When attention fades, filtration begins. If you collapse, you are not ready. If you stabilize, you become rare. And rarity is leverage. Now the decision. You can return to lower tiers, seek validation, perform strength, chase applause, or you can accept permanent evaluation, permanent pressure, permanent solitude at the top of your internal hierarchy. Because sovereignty is not loud independence. It is silent non-negotiation. No begging for alignment. No emotional outsourcing. No dependency on reaction. You act according to internal command structure. And reality adjusts around you over time. Not because you asked, because you endured. Understand this clearly. Perception tiers are not motivational metaphors. They are sorting mechanisms. Every day, through behavior, restraint, reaction, and discipline, you signal your position. Selection never sleeps. It does not argue. It does not persuade. It observes. And then it decides. The only question that remains, now that you know that tiers exist, will you operate differently? Or will you continue broadcasting your level to those who are watching quietly? Choose carefully. Because perception is not what you think you are. It is what you demonstrate under pressure. And pressure never lies.